Before its release, Half-Life 2 was a very different game. It was a much darker setting where the Combine had done even more damage to the planet and its people. Pre-release versions of Half-Life 2 featured completely drained oceans, child labor, and also, for some reason, Gordon Freeman rode a jet ski. Yes, you heard me right. In the original version of Half-Life 2, Gordon Freeman rode a jet ski along the canals of City 17. Now, you're probably asking, what were they thinking? What were they smoking to have Gordon Freeman riding around the post-apocalyptic canals of City 17 on a jet ski? And honestly, I couldn't tell you. They apparently only cut it because it didn't work properly. The model is so weird looking. According to the Combine Overwiki, it's based on some kind of old-fashioned style jet ski. And you can see in this image that they mounted a gun on it. To me, it makes it feel like Gordon Freeman's going on vacation to the Bahamas and not fighting his way through zombie-infested sewers and canals. So there you have it, the precursor to the airboat. Now, I know a lot of people hate the airboat, but I think that this somehow would have been worse. Or maybe not. Let me know what you think. It's time for a real challenge. I'm going to play every single game that comes up when you search Half-Life on the itch.io store page. There are a lot of things that come up when you search for Half-Life on itch.io, so I need to lay out some ground rules. For this challenge, I'm only going to be playing games. Some of the things on here are mods, and some are asset packs or even soundtracks, and those things are not games, so I will be skipping them. Additionally, a cursory glance reveals things that look like they could give my computer a virus, so I will not be downloading them. Some free advice to new game developers: your store page should not look suspicious. That sounds like a low bar, but some of these games fail to reach it. Anyways, I get a feeling that some of these games I play are going to make me regret attempting this challenge. So let's get started. Half-Life. In parentheses, no, not the Valve one. The description for this game begins with a desperate clarification that this is not the Valve one. I imagine this poor person just wanted to make a game about nuclear physics, only to be bombarded with comments asking why there's no Gordon Freeman. So Half-Life is a match 3 game involving the decay of radioactive isotopes. You have to match up the isotopes quickly before they decay. It's an interesting twist on the classic match 3 format, if a bit simple. Half-Life Atomic Infinite Runner. In this game, you play as an atom of carbon, trying not to get sucked into a black hole. There's a weird weightiness to the movement of this game, probably because of all the black holes. Most of the time I was confused why I didn't get sucked into a black hole, or surprised that I did. It works on mobile, which is interesting for a browser game, but personally I did not try out that feature. Half-Life Game Boy. I think this is supposed to be a version of Half-Life for the Game Boy, but I tried pressing every button, and while I could get the menu to load, I could not get the game to load, so I don't really know what it's about. Half-Life 2D Demo. The Half-Life 2D demo shows some promise, but as far as I can tell, only the intro ride on the tram is playable. It has an interesting graphic style which I would like to see in a longer Half-Life fan game, but as it is, there isn't much here to talk about. Pico Life. I'm not sure what's going on with this game. So it is a charming demake of the original Half-Life. For those that don't know what a demake is, it's when you take a game and remake it as if it came out on an older console. However, the first few times I loaded the game, it started up a weird version of Flappy Bird where there's no collision and you can't die. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. It's a Pico 8 game, which is fun. Pico 8 is a quote-unquote fantasy games console with a limited resolution and palette that is often installed on a Raspberry Pi as part of a novelty console build. A lot of people make games for it, and there is a fun challenge to make something within its limited capabilities. Pico Life generally follows the plot of the original Half-Life.
just from a 2D perspective. The combat has an old Atari or early Nintendo feeling in it that is a little clunky, but with a retro charm. I love the pixel art recreation of the resonance cascade. It's decently fun and seemingly one of the more complete remakes I've played so far. Half-Life Permafrost. This game is a text adventure game. Now, these kind of text adventure games where you can allegedly type in anything but really just have to guess the words the developer accounted for aren't really my cup of tea. It starts out with Gordon, Alex, and Dr. Mossman about to board the Borealis, and the Combine are hot on their heels. I tried shooting my gun. Nothing happened. I tried firing my gun at the Combine. Nothing happened. I tried talking to Alex and the game told me to ask Alex about something specific. I ask Alex about the Combine. Alex has her hands full with the Combine. I think that's the understatement of the fucking century, folks. Half-Life 4. My antivirus software really didn't want me playing this game. They tried to stop me. They wanted to keep me from the truth. But after telling it that I really wanted to play Half-Life 4, it finally loaded the game. It's a music video where Dr. Eli Vance and Dr. Kleiner sing the song In the End by Linkin Park. I'm not really sure why this is a game and not a YouTube video, but it is a beautiful creation and belongs in a museum. Half-Life 2 Deathmatch 2D. For some reason, this game reminds me of a game by 2Clicks Philip called Dragon Aramine. It's a top-down shooter that pretends to be multiplayer. I do like the very argumentative fake chat log on the side. It really sells the full online gaming experience. Despite all the chaos on screen, not much is happening because the bullets don't really do much damage. Half-Life Puzzle Script. Apparently, Puzzle Script is an HTML5 game engine specifically for making puzzle games, and this is a port of Half-Life to that engine. This is one of the more extreme remakes that we've seen so far. Half-Life Top-Down. This reimagining of Half-Life as a top-down shooter has slightly more advanced graphics than some of the others, but also slightly less advanced gameplay. It's also got this weird spirally effect when you die, which is kind of cool. So at this point, I've been tempted to retitle the video I attempted to play all the Half-Life games on itch.io, but I must steel myself and press onward. It's hard to tell how many more games I have left because many of them don't work or are just mods, but I'm not even sure if I'm halfway there. If you're watching this, please send help. Half-Life 9. Wow, a 3D game? I honestly forgot those existed for a second. I think this is meant to be a multiplayer game, which is why the world is empty. Personally, I don't have any friends, so I'm unable to play this game as a multiplayer title and test it out. But you can play it for yourself and let me know if it's any good. The level design looks somewhat intriguing, so maybe it's fun. The developer claims in the comments that it's a parody of Valve games, but I'm not really sure they know what parody means. Half-Life 3. I'm not downloading a game with the description Half-Life 3 real, actually real, no virus, free, and if that disappoints you and makes you click away from the video, then I am very sorry. Half-Life 0. The cover art here leaves something to be desired, but the comment on the game which reads, "I will forever be thinking about Chibi Gordon," is certainly intriguing. Let's get it downloaded. Okay, so I have a lot to say about this game. First, upon loading it up, you realize that this is an RPG Maker game. Now, RPG Maker games have a certain reputation like a lot of amateur game engines, but we shouldn't be quick to judge because as promised, we instantly encounter Chibi Gordon Freeman. There he is, in outer space for some reason, and he is pissed about the G-Man. In fact, he seems to have a murderous intent. Then we load into the only screen for this game. Yep, this is the only area. I checked. Then we meet our team. Yes, just like in a regular RPG, you build a party of 4 members to fight enemies. Usually this happens slowly over the course of the game, but in this one they're just all standing right here. Your party members are Alex, Barney, and Mitchell. Yes, Mitchell from fucking Hunt Down the Freeman. Amazing. I walked over to speak with Barney and he said, "I don't the thing, I ow you." He joined my party though. My first playthrough, I thought that this guy in blue might be worth talking to, so Barney and I walked over to him to say hello, and it turns out that he's the final boss. Here we find out that the weird cover art from earlier is actually supposed to be the G-Man. He's not very tough to defeat, and then the game just returns you to the title screen. Honestly, this one is a 10 out of 10 for me. Half-Life Fishing. Personally, I love a good fishing game, so I was kind of interested in trying this out. So G-Man tasks you with doing some fishing.
It has come to my attention that my employers think that you are unable to go fishing. I disagree.
And with the help of that guy from Lost Coast, you catch a fish, a head crab, and a Combine soldier. Then you end up in a helicopter shooting other helicopters with a minigun, which isn't fishing, so that's kind of disappointing. This game needs more fishing. 3 out of 10. Half-Life Clicker. Well, it's a clicking game. It has upgrades and a high score mechanic, but nothing to write home about as far as I can tell. Maybe there are secrets if you get a high enough score, but I went up to about 2,000 and didn't find anything. Half-Life 2D Black Mesa. This game looks promising, as it claims to have a 90-minute playtime and actually seems to be a project undertaken less for the memes, but due to a real passion for the game. So this is Half-Life, but as a 2D platformer. It's actually really well made, and Cubic Freeman is amazing. A few difficulty spikes that caught me off guard, but I am not the best at platformers, so maybe it's easier for other people. Honestly, this is probably the one game you should play out of all the games in this video. Even dying in this game is kind of funny with the simple and silly animations. Additionally, there's lots of funny recreations of scenes from Half-Life. I love this part where the scientists fall down the elevator. This game is well made and polished to an extent that the other games that I've encountered here just aren't. The graphics are simple, but convey a great deal with their consistent style and cartoonish charm, coupled with some excellent shaders that give it that extra shine. Clearly, a great deal of effort was put into making this game, and it's a shame that it's so far down on the search listing because it really should be at the top. This might be the one game that I don't uninstall right after recording it, so that's my official endorsement. Half-Life but the. Anyways, this game is Half-Life mixed with Undertale. I have played both of these games, but I'm not sure I understand what's going on here. No idea if the dialogue here is referencing something I could know about, or if it's all just insane rambling. It's well made enough, and it feels like playing Undertale with Half-Life 2 characters. And at the end we get Animal Crossing Half-Life, which is also hilarious. So I'm about halfway down the list of games, although I think the ordering is actually somewhat random every time I reload the page, so it's possible that I might miss a few games because of that. Oh no. However, it seems the further down I scroll, the more games are just mods or soundtracks or asset packs. which, as I said before, aren't part of the challenge, so that's giving me hope that I'm in the home stretch. I also cannot bring myself to play the Five Nights at Freddy's Half-Life parodies. I'm sorry, but I could not live with myself if I did that. Half-Life GB. So this is another Game Boy version of Half-Life, but this one actually works. So it's a 3D game, which is kind of cool. However, the Game Boy palette does make the game a little confusing to look at. There are just too few colors to discern some of the details, especially empty hallways where it will look like a dead end, but it's actually a corner. You do get a variety of weapons right away, which is nice. I did die a lot because it's sometimes confusing if you are doing damage or if the enemy is hurting you. And when you first pick up the crowbar, I could not figure out how to equip it. Still, it's an interesting little game that's worth a play for a few minutes. Half-Life 2, Episode 3, Gordon Freeman, Rational Man. This is a visual novel. Interesting. So, throughout this game, Gordon is an annoying little shit, and you have to play as him trying to debate the Combine. It's making fun of the average centrist Redditor personality. The combat system where you make pointed remarks while the Combine beat the shit out of you is honestly kind of funny. At the end of the game, the Combine gets sick of Gordon's Ben Shapiro Debate Club energy and shoot him in the head. However, Gordon dies believing he has won the argument. The drawings in the game are funny, though the joke of the game is laid on so thick that it might just crush you to death. The Half-Life of Florovium. I have no idea what this game is about. It's very short, and the description warns you that it is a waste of time to play. Let's move on to the next game. Half-Life 3. I guess this person named their unrelated game Half-Life 3 to get it more attention on itch.io, though I don't think anyone should be tricked into thinking that Valve would release Half-Life 3 for free onto itch.io. I could not stomach more than 30 seconds of this game, to be honest. Sorry, it's just kinda bad. Half-Life Half-Broken. I download the game and it's not called Half-Life Half-Broken, it's called Flappy Ship, and you can imagine what that would be like, and you would be right. However, it doesn't use Flappy Bird controls. Your ship just follows your cursor. At one point I moved my ship above the level by accident, and so I couldn't die. Half-Life Alyx by Ben. This is a cool little low poly model of Alyx's glove. Not a game, but it's still kinda cool. Half-Life Shipment. Is this the last game? I think the rest are just mods or repeats of games that didn't work. So, now I present Half-Life Shipment. Let's see if it's any good. Well, it's got blocky graphics and some nice weapon variety. I especially enjoy the grappling hook on the shotgun. It's a simple game, but out of all the 3D games I've played today, I think I enjoyed this one the most. Somehow I made it through this challenge. While I enjoyed some games, I hope you appreciate the slog that this challenge has been. One thing I must say is that I feel like I've experienced the intro of Half-Life way too many times. Every game seemed to start with riding the tram for either a minute or the same full 5 minutes that actually happens in the original Half-Life game. I would say that if you're making a Half-Life remake, start with a playable section of the game. In the original Half-Life, the graphics in the game were new and exciting, which is why they got away with that. But in a remake, there just isn't the same awe and wonder. Anyways, the takeaway here is that you should play Half-Life Block Mesa, and that I need to take a long break from playing video games. Before online wikis and video walkthroughs became ubiquitous, there was the Humble Game Guide.
Half-Life 2's official guide is over 300 pages long, although part of that is inexplicably dedicated to Counter-Strike Source, so only about 2/3 is Half-Life related. It was written by David Hodgson, who also worked on the Half-Life 2 Raising the Bar book. Both of these books are considered to be a source of Half-Life 2 canon by the Combine Overwiki, so I wanted to check and see what I could learn by reading through the entire Half-Life 2 official guide. Well, I read the whole guide, and well, it doesn't really contain much hidden Half-Life knowledge. So instead, here are all the weird, funny, and interesting things I found inside the Half-Life 2 official guide. On page 9 of the guide, we get descriptions of some of the most basic things not only in Half-Life 2 but in real life as well. Here are some quotes. Climbing ladders can be treacherous until you employ the technique of pressing E to grab and release your grip on the ladder. This lets you negotiate ladders without fear near precipices. Heading up and down stairs is a simple concept. Doors appear in a variety of shapes and types. Personally, I am deeply concerned for anyone whose first introduction to the concept of stairs was the Half-Life 2 official guide. On page 10, they have a mistake by omission. They note that your crossbow and crowbar work underwater, but they forget that the pistol also works underwater. I don't know if that was something that was changed late in the development of Half-Life 2. Maybe this is a sign that it was. On page 12, they refer to random objects in the game as scenic debris. On page 17, the antlion guard is given a scientific name, Myrmidont giganticus. I think some Half-Life 1 species have scientific names, though apparently headcrabs do not. On page 18, we learn that the scout car belongs to Eli Vance. On page 20, we find out the full title of Gordon Freeman's graduate thesis. On page 22, we find out that Alex Vance's mom is named Asian, which is spelled like Asian with a Z. That's quite the name, folks. In the bestiary section, where we do find more information about the citizens of City 17, we are also given threat levels for each of the enemies in the game, which is supposed to tell you how concerned you should be when they show up in the levels. Interestingly, leeches are given the same threat level as poison headcrab and fast headcrab zombies. And scanners are given a threat level of 1, even though they are the most fucking annoying thing in the game. Also, headcrab zombies are shown in attacking poses without the headcrabs on their head, implying that maybe at some point they could survive having the headcrab removed? I don't know. Usually I believe in game if you remove the headcrab, the zombie dies. Sometimes you can kill the zombie part and the headcrab will survive, but I don't think it works the other way around. So after the book gives a brief introduction on the game, it actually goes into an excruciating amount of detail of how to beat Half-Life 2. So it basically gives you a play-by-play walkthrough of the entire game. There are some interesting parts to this guide, like the top-down views they give of all the levels. Those look really nice, but honestly, explaining how to go through Half-Life 2, a almost completely linear game, is a little tedious. So I'm just going to give you a few of my favorite lines from this. On page 43, the guide refers to this City 17 citizen as a dejected chap sitting at the table. On page 49, we find out that Dr. Kleiner was on the cover of Popular Science. On page 214, we find that the Combine teleport explosion registered on Kleiner's seismographic printout. On page 147, we get an interesting callback to one of my previous videos, which was about the antlion mounds. In this guide, they are referred to as antlion nests, which is simply more proof for those who doubted that they are in fact related to antlions. On page 268, we get another mention of the amazing blurring effects of the energy ball. I don't know. This keeps coming up in the guide. I think it's mentioned, I think at least 2 other times. I just found it funny that they were very impressed by the fact that when you pick up the energy ball, the screen goes blurry. I guess back in 2004, that was cutting edge technology. I mean, it probably was. And that's basically everything interesting from the guide. Most of it is, as I said, dedicated to telling you how to beat the completely linear game of Half-Life 2. So it basically says go forward, turn right, turn left, shoot this guy, move these crates, that sort of thing. It's very basic. It's not as interesting to read as the Half-Life 2 Raising the Bar, which has a lot of really interesting details and behind the scenes knowledge from Half-Life 2. But it's still a piece of gaming history. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did enjoy this video, consider subscribing. Maybe I'll do a video about Half-Life 2 Raising the Bar. Although I imagine that other people have covered that book in great detail. In a previous video, I read the official guide for Half-Life 2 to find weird and interesting things hidden within its hundreds of pages of text. So today I set out to read the guide for the original Half-Life. However, I did make one mistake. I accidentally read the official guide for the Dreamcast version of Half-Life, which actually never came out. Strangely, it was cancelled so late in development that the guide had already basically been released. So that's why there are still copies of it floating around on the internet. And while I was searching for the Half-Life official guide, I accidentally stumbled upon this one instead. I should have been paying more attention because it does say Dreamcast on the cover. So after I realized this, I did go back to see how similar it is to the original Half-Life guide for PC, and I did find that they are pretty similar. There are some sections that are exactly the same word for word. These are written and published by the same person and company. The author is, however, different from the Half-Life 2 guide. This time it is written by Joe Grant Bell, but it is still published by Prima, don't know how to say it. This time the guides are seemingly printed in black and white. The covers are in color, but all the pages inside are in black and white. I don't have a physical copy of the guide, so it's possible that whoever scanned it in black and white, but since the covers are in color, I'm going to assume that the guides are officially in black and white, which is kind of a shame because they would probably be a lot more readable and enjoyable if they were in color. A lot of the screenshots from the games are, a little bit muddled, I guess, just because of the nature of black and white printing. So anyway, some other differences between the PC version of the guide and the Dreamcast version of the guide is that the Dreamcast one is just so much more intense in its presentation. The fonts are weirder. Each page is more grungy, and there's all these cutouts of characters and enemies filling every single blank available space. I do like the more detailed, at least I feel like it's more detailed way that they did the walkthrough in the Dreamcast version, which I think it's actually much more similar to how it's presented in the Half-Life 2 Prima guide. So I think that's just showing how the publisher evolved over time, but it's entirely subjective and maybe you prefer the original version. So without further ado, let's take a look at some strange, interesting, and funny things from the original Half-Life guide. So on page 4, we learn that leeches are also called hagworms in the Half-Life 1 guide. Just an interesting alternate name for these creatures. On page 5, just like in the Half-Life 2 guide, they don't mention that the pistol can fire underwater. I don't know why this is something that doesn't show up in the guide. They make a very big point of saying how the crossbow can fire underwater, but never the pistol. On page 9, the guide reminds you not to snark yourself. On page 11, the game describes an item in the game as confusing. On page 13, the headcrab zombie is referred to as a maw man. Now, that's an interesting term that I hadn't really heard before.
Maybe it was the official term when the first Half-Life came out, but by the time that Half-Life 2 came out, and definitely by the time I started playing Half-Life 2 and Half-Life, everybody referred to these as headcrab zombies. On page 16, we learn that you can kill Gargantua with just your regular weapons, although it is not recommended. On page 17, we learn that assassins are deadly. On page 22, the guide gives us some FPS strategy, which is interesting, especially since the original Half-Life, when it came out, FPS was a much younger genre, so I think it's kind of helpful that the game gives a lot of useful tips here. On page 29, Gordon looks very lost. On page 30, step 1, your train makes no stops. Step 2, at one point, your train stops. On page 51, tip, don't move around much while the cart is in motion, or you will fall off. Page 57, tip, if you stay in the elevator, it will plummet into a pool of toxic sludge. Feels like it's recommending that you do that and not, like it's not a warning, it's a tip, you know? Page 67, we recommend ignoring the rail cart this time. Towards the end of the guide, there is also a section on Half-Life Blue Shift, but it's interesting that I guess the Dreamcast version was going to have both the original game and Blue Shift, so, well, I guess it's a shame that it never came out. After that, I wanted to share some cheats that you had on the Dreamcast version of Half-Life 2 for anyone who is, I guess, looking to use some cheats in this one. It's like, this one's called Zen Teaches Black Mesa, and it adds Zen gravity on Earth. Soldiers ignore Gordon, and that's no target mode. Otis loves Dreamcast. That's God mode. I don't know who Otis is. Maybe that's the dog from Garfield, I guess. Dreamcast gives firepower. That one's infinite ammo. Next we have action ignore silence, and that's slow motion mode. Anyways, that was the Half-Life guide for Dreamcast. It's pretty similar to the regular Half-Life guide, which I accidentally didn't read. Thanks for watching. Amazon, a great river but a terrible website. Today I searched up Half-Life on Jeff Bezos' esteemed web store to see what kind of garbage I would find. I'm pretty sure Valve doesn't sell anything officially through Amazon, so it's all going to be unofficial merchandise. There's nothing wrong with knockoff merchandise. How else are we supposed to acquire our altered adolescent samurai tortoises? Anyways, I'm sure the brand Ms. Risley has full permission from Gabe himself to print their game poster, Half-Life Opposing Force 1999 tin sign, retro metal sign, room, bar, pub, man cave decoration, 8x12 inch. Personally, I cannot pass judgment on whether or not any of this merchandise is above board because I'm not a trademark lawyer. But what I can do is look at the stuff on my computer and talk trash about it. Yeah, I'm not buying any of this, and I'm going to recommend that you don't either. Now let's get into this list of the 10 most interesting things I found while searching Half-Life on Amazon. Number 1. Most Amazon listings are a word salad of shit. You just want a toaster, and now you're looking at a Q-Kilt 4000 toasting device, kitchen perfect for bagels, crumpets, Pop-Tarts, 400 kilowatts, lime green. But this listing is just t-shirt. Not even a Half-Life t-shirt. Just a t-shirt. Number 2. A head crab hat. You know, I could see someone wanting this hat. I've met people who constantly wear silly hats, and a head crab hat could fit into their personality. Number 3. I feel like this is the kind of hat that a guy from Squidbillies would wear. It's the perfect gift, I guess, for your uncle who is building a perpetual motion machine in his garage. Number 4. I could get behind a Half-Life HEV wall charger. Although it would be cooler if it was not a poster, but an actual physical prop to hang on your wall. Maybe it could charge your phone or something. Number 5. A half gallon of half and half. Number 6. Gunman. Has anyone played this game? It apparently runs on the Half-Life engine, and that's all I know about it. Number 7. Half symbol life car truck laptop sticker, decal 4-inch wide.
white. Number 8. An HEV suit hoodie is nicer than some of these other things, although it does kind of feel like wearing one of those tuxedo t-shirts. It's like a piece of clothing with another piece of clothing printed on it. What a strange innovation. Number 9. This has got to be one of the most random things from Half-Life to put on a sticker. I mean, it is a cool looking design, but I'm surprised that this thing specifically exists. Number 10. This Lambda pendant says it is for Half-Life cosplay. And yes, it is 100% canon that Gordon wears this necklace throughout the entire Half-Life series. Well folks, I am not really sure what to say about this collection of items. There is something banal and insidious about scrolling down an Amazon search page. Honestly, by the 3rd or 4th page, it wasn't even showing me stuff even tangentially related to Half-Life. So, I gave up. A while ago, I made a video about Half-Life merchandise that you can find on Amazon, and that was kind of fun, so I've decided to go deeper into the dregs of internet shopping to see what I can find. I feel like online shopping has only gotten worse over the years. It's plagued with scams, drop shippers, cheap tat, and man-made horrors beyond all comprehension. I guess that's just what today's shoppers crave. Now, unlike with Amazon, I've never actually purchased anything from these websites, and I would recommend that you don't either. However, today I am on a quest to find the worst Half-Life merch. So, let's get into it. I started with Temu, because they have the most annoying ads on YouTube. I feel like ads these days aren't really trying to sell you things, but more just trying to deal immense psychic damage to you. Anyway, I searched up Half-Life on Temu's website, and here's what I found. I struggled to parse the image for this first product. Like, who the fuck is this supposed to be from Half-Life? Surely that couldn't be Gordon Freeman. What have they done to him? Apparently what's being sold here is the small poster in the background, and the sculpture of some guy's head is just there for decorations and setting the vibe. But the poster's just so small and pathetic that it doesn't even seem like the focus of the image. I also like how you can pay for this in 4 interest-free installments of $1. Now, I'm not a licensed financial advisor, but if you need to split a $4 purchase into installments, perhaps you should reconsider how you're handling your money. Now, Temu's also got these bland Half-Life themed t-shirts, which is okay, I guess. That's really all that came up that I could tie directly to the Half-Life series, though there were these waifu scrapbooking stickers that for some reason are being labeled as from the Half-Life series. I'm guessing it's a different Half-Life series. At least they come in many styles, such as Sunset Warm Sun and Flowering Period Sometimes. The final item I'll mention here is this beautiful poster which every gamer should hang in their bedroom. Honestly, I was a bit surprised by the lack of Half-Life products here. Even Amazon had more than this. Now, up next was Wish.com. The only Half-Life merch that they had were these t-shirts claiming to be from the Pirates of the Caribbean series. They also had a Halloween costume for that guy from Breaking Bad, so there is some variety here. Still, I was surprised about how little was available that was actually on the theme of what I searched. I had to stop scrolling down because the next thing they tried to sell me was a whole wearable silicone ass. I'm not sure what the connection to Half-Life was. Maybe it was labeled as half-assed or something. Wish was pretty disappointing for the purposes of this video, but I guess it's probably just a disappointing website in general. Putting that behind us, I moved on to AliExpress. Wow, does this website have a lot to offer? I guess there isn't that much overhead in offering a design for printing on t-shirts, masks, hats, etc., so the options here are almost limitless. One highlight from the AliExpress store are these missing textured printed objects, such as this pillow or this blanket. These are probably one of the few products on offer today that would be kind of funny to purchase as a gift for someone. They also have those wall charger posters that Amazon had, but this time one of the options is famous Half-Life character HAL 9000 for some reason.
Another listing refers to the gravity gun as a science fiction pistol. There are also these Half-Life themed socks, and I found this Gordon Freeman in the style of Vincent van Gogh phone case, which I hope but kind of doubt that they got permission from the original artist, Drew Northcott, to print. It's surprising how much more Half-Life merch this site has than the other two that I looked at, and honestly the products here just went on and on, although most of them were pretty simple variations on the Lambda logo printed on various t-shirts and hats. But still, there's a lot of things here. Well, I think I'll end it here, as that's enough staring into the bleak, soulless void of e-commerce for today.
It's no secret that despite its Eastern European setting, the coastal chapters of Half-Life 2 are heavily based on the northern reaches of US Route 101, which runs along the Pacific Ocean from Los Angeles to Washington State. If you look along either the Baltic or Black Seas in Eastern Europe, you will notice a rather flat terrain of farmland and lagoons, not the staggering cliffs, tunnels, and bridges that make the sections along Highway 17 so memorable. All of these things, however, you will find along Route 101. This makes sense, as Valve's headquarters lay just across the Puget Sound from the northern end of the highway. And it is easy to imagine that most of the people who made Half-Life 2 have driven along its winding pavement at some point in their lives, and probably been inspired enough to feature it in their game. Coastlines leave such a lasting impression. Many people can remember vividly the first time they see the ocean, especially those not lucky enough to live near the sea. The twists and turns of a similar highway, State Route 1 of California, are of course seared into my memory. Once, as a storm battered the coast of Northern California, I was driving into the night to visit relatives in a remote seaside cabin. At first it seemed like I would beat the weather, but as I passed through the small town of Fort Ross, the clouds dimmed the last stars and the rain rushed in from the sea like a tsunami. In the dark, it was impossible to see the road ahead, and what I could make out chilled me to the bone. Trees swayed like grass in the growing winds, and I could see its effects in the branches and limbs that were strewn across the roadway. It seemed as though the whole world would be washed away into the Pacific, but somehow the landscape held. In Half-Life 2, the waters are instead being siphoned away, revealing the aching skeleton of the coast. It is now a dying place, but it still holds. You still feel the majesty of the landscape, and the receding waters still pull you towards their infinite vista. They're strangely calm, perhaps an artifact of how poor wave simulation would have looked in 2004, or perhaps it is purposeful. Nonetheless, it is both calm and uncanny. The sands, too, are dangerous in this game. Antlions patrol the beaches like miniature Shai-Haluts, attacking anyone who dares step onto the beach. These creatures build towering sand spires, imbuing the once familiar coast with an alien feeling. I suppose they literally are aliens, after all. Some people find them a little annoying, but I personally love the antlions and how they add to the combat and world building of Half-Life 2. They make each step out of your car in the level feel tense with uncertainty, and each moment spent running them over in your car feels satisfying. The way you eventually gain control over them and use them against your enemies is, in my opinion, one of the high points of the series. Now, while the antlions do dominate the landscape of Highway 17, there are other dangers such as the Combine and headcrabs, though these are more sparse than in previous levels, giving a little bit of quiet in an otherwise fast-paced game. It is a shame that the developers of Half-Life 2 were unable to incorporate the large sea-going monster, known colloquially as the ichthyosaur, into the coastal levels. Even seeing a beached one on the shore would have been a sight to behold. Finding strange and monstrous things beached on the shore is actually one of my hobbies. Some would call it beachcombing, but I honestly think the way I put it sounds cooler. Once while walking along the shore, I came across a Portuguese man-o-war,
which had been tossed onto the sand by the previous night's storm. At sea, it is quite the formidable and feared creature. Certainly, it is capable of killing an unsuspecting swimmer with its sting, but on the shore it seems deflated, small, and unassuming. If I didn't know so much about the dangerous denizens of the sea, I may have decided to pick it up. Instead, I left it there dead and disarmed. Or distentacled, I guess. Something I wish I could find dead on the beach is the mighty oarfish. Though in my opinion, that name does not do it justice. I prefer the more traditional term, the king of herrings. Truly, this fish is regal. I could lay it out and it could stretch from my bed all the way to the gutter in the street, provided that distance is roughly just less than 40 feet. Seeing one of these, even desiccated on the shore, would be ingrained in my mind forever. Highway 17 is ingrained in my mind already. I can see it as a real place, like some kind of malformed memory. The houses in particular coalesce into physical spaces. Each house along Highway 17 has its own character. I'm especially fond of the one where the floor has collapsed into the basement and you have to climb up and face a poisonous headcrab zombie. If not for that eldritch creature, this place would hardly be apocalyptic. An abandoned house along a rugged rural coastline isn't anything uncommon. The coasts are in a constant state of flux, and nothing there can last forever. Speaking of things that won't last forever, the deals from this video's sponsor. I'm joking. This video doesn't have a sponsor. I don't want you to have things. What you accumulate in this life, be it goods or services, will only bring you sorrow. Highway 17 at least offers a glimmer of hope for its coastal environment. Amongst all the wreckage, alien creatures, and destructive terraforming, there's still at least seagulls. Personally, I love seagulls, both in real life and in Half-Life 2. Ornithologists will tell you that there are many species of seagull. This is true, but it's not often that important. I made a video once where I identified the species of seagull in Half-Life 2. But even I can't remember what I said it was. I also love that the seagulls in Half-Life 2 will take a shit on your car if you leave it unattended. What a realistic game. Now, I've tried to get them to do this, but the seagulls in the game are also very glitchy. They're more likely to get stuck in the ground than actually soil your vehicle. I'm pretty sure you can also shoot them, but I don't do that because it seems mean. And also, it's bad luck to kill a seabird. In the unused Half-Life 2 level, Lost Coast, an old mariner warns you against shooting the birds because they eat the leeches. Although, from personal experience, they don't seem to be doing a very good job of keeping their numbers down. This video is going to be a little different. It's not so focused, more meandering like a river. Coastlines meander in a way that's not so distinct from a river. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about how coastlines are technically infinite because of their fractal nature. If you measure them with a smaller and smaller ruler, they keep getting bigger and bigger. I'm not a mathematician or computer scientist, but I'm pretty sure digital coastlines in video games don't have this property. They are made up of polygons and can be clearly defined and measured. Maybe one day they'll simulate proper fractal coastlines in modern games and I'll finally have a reason to upgrade my gaming rig. The first time I played through Highway 17 was a revelation. Even though I got into PC gaming years after Half-Life 2's release, it was still one of the first games I played, as I didn't quite have a computer that could handle the more modern titles. Still, this game blew me away. It was leagues ahead in graphics, story, and immersion from the arcade games I'd had access to on old plug-and-play consoles. The open spaces of this section of the game really stood out to me, as I had never encountered anything like it before. I could almost feel the ocean air blowing in my face, and the sand vibrating as hordes of antlions attacked. The scale of it all was so much more than in other games I had played. The bridge section is etched into my memory with its dizzying heights and creaking beams. Another main draw of Half-Life 2 compared to other games I had played was to have characters look at you and speak directly, like someone might hold a conversation in real life. Most games at the time did this in strict cutscenes, and the difference is night and day. It's suitably ironic then that Gordon is unable to hold a conversation at all, when at the time of Half-Life 2's release, he was surrounded by the best conversationalists in video game history.
Come on, Gordon, crank that thing.
Personally, I can relate to Gordon. That's why I make YouTube videos instead of talking to people. The Half-Life series loves to return to City 17, but I hope that one day it will circle back to the highway of the same number, which I believe would really shine with updated graphics. One thing I would love to see in an updated version is a tide pool full of strange Zen creatures. Half-Life Alyx did such a great job expanding the strange Zen growths and details you could find around the city, and giving the same treatment to the seaside would be such a treat. Perhaps it is a little greedy of me to want to return to this landscape when I can already see it so clearly in my mind. Whatever details are missing in the original Half-Life 2 version, my mind fills in, which gives the landscape even more life than if it was recreated in perfect high definition. Regardless, it's not clear when or if Half-Life 3 will be released. Maybe it's more likely that we get a sequel to Half-Life Alyx, or perhaps the day after this video comes out, Valve drops the trailer for the Vaporware of Vaporwares. The future is unknowable. Eventually, the coast of Highway 17 rises up into the towering Nova Prospekt prison complex. Leaving it behind is a shame because it's my favorite section of any video game. Although it is probably good that it doesn't outstay its welcome. Hopefully this video hasn't outstayed its welcome either. If you're still here, thanks for watching. Don't you just hate normal vacations with their fun, relaxation, and good vibes? Shouldn't there be a vacation for those of us who want to experience the post-apocalyptic dread of Half-Life 2 in real life? Probably no one has asked that question before, but now you're watching a video about it, so here we are. This, of course, will be a complete itinerary for anyone wishing to embark upon a complete Half-Life 2 vacation. I will do my best to include prices and flights for the entire itinerary, although unfortunately this will probably be a trip that either shouldn't be or cannot be undertaken. But we are going to do our best. Your vacation should begin on a train, much like the intro to Half-Life 2 itself. After all, we are trying to faithfully recreate the experience of the game in real life. You will be on your way to what I think is the best real-world stand-in for City 17, Sofia, Bulgaria. I say this because the art director of Half-Life 2, Viktor Antonov, has said that the primary inspiration for City 17 was the city of Sofia, so I am going with that as the start of the journey. Some areas of City 17 are possibly inspired by other Eastern European cities, but we have to start the journey somewhere, so it might as well be here. I suggest you start this vacation by hopping on the train from Bucharest to Sofia, which will set you back a cool $50. This is a 9-hour, 27-minute train ride, which could give you time to play both of the Half-Life 2 episodes, or you could listen to G-Man's opening monologue for Half-Life 2 about 900 times to get you into the right headspace for this vacation. Once you arrive in Sofia, you need to head to the nearest vending machine in the train station and completely empty it of its contents. Apparently, unlike in Half-Life 2, vending machines can have up to 300 bottles in them, so this will probably set you back around $600. Now, you can either dispose of these cans or start chucking them at random people. Either of those choices will enhance your Half-Life vacation experience. Now, after combing the internet for the perfect hotel for your stay in Sofia, Bulgaria, I landed on this guest apartment because honestly the picture they are using to showcase it almost looks like a screenshot in the game. This will set you back $70. In the morning, you can check out the city's canal. Surprisingly, it almost seems to have less water than the canal in Half-Life 2. I also don't really think you could fit an airboat in it. That's kind of disappointing, but oh well. And that's actually all we're going to do in Sofia for now, although we will be returning here for the last leg of our journey. Up next, you're going to take a flight to Yakutsk, Russia, which will set you back around $750. From there, we will be visiting the abandoned Siberian mining town of Kadukchan, which has been abandoned since 2010. I'm not really sure what the rental car situation is at the Yakutsk airport, but for those wishing to forgo the car and save some money, Kadukchan is only a 12-day hike away. Like the town in Half-Life 2, it also has a gruesome history, as an explosion that killed 6 people led to the closure of the town's final mine in the 1990s. There's not really a hotel or anything here. As I mentioned, this place has been abandoned fully since 2010. Hopefully, you brought a tent. There are also few amenities at this abandoned mining town, so after a brief walk around town, you should probably either walk or drive back to Yakutsk. From there, you'll fly from Yakutsk to Astana, Kazakhstan. Now, from there, you'll rent a car and travel to the Aral Sea region. For those who don't know, the Aral Sea used to be one of the largest lakes in the world, but now has mostly dried up due to the diversion of rivers that flowed into the lake. This led to the creation of a vast desert where there was once a beautiful lake. It would probably be considered the worst ecological disaster created by the Soviet Union, if not for the fact that they were also responsible for Chernobyl. I believe that wandering along the edge of this greatly diminished lake will recreate the feeling of the lowered sea levels along Highway 17. I think it is noted somewhere, possibly in Half-Life 2 Raising the Bar, that the Aral Sea was one of the main inspirations for the Combine draining the world's oceans. While you're wandering along the Aral Sea, you can encounter many classic Highway 17 things, such as boats stranded high above the waterline, sand, and the creeping dread that something isn't right in the world. If possible, you should try to rent a dune buggy for this part of the journey, as I imagine it can only enhance your experience. From Kazakhstan, you'll now fly to San Francisco to visit the famous Alcatraz prison. This flight will cost about $800. I think Alcatraz is probably about as close as you can get to the Nova Prospekt experience without actually breaking into a real prison. But I'm trying to keep this video within the realm of legal possibilities. I believe you can even stay at Alcatraz overnight in one of the prison cells if you want to. So that takes care of your hotel. Also, since you're in America, you should also visit a gun range to get the full Half-Life 2 FPS experience. Yes, there are gun ranges in California, even in the Bay Area. I checked, just for this video. To end this wonderful vacation, you'll fly back to Sofia, Bulgaria. I believe this will also cost around $700 to $800. This time you'll join with a small group tour, where other guests will block your views, trip you up, and generally get in your way. This, I think, would be a great way to replicate the squad mechanic from the game. From there, you will visit the tallest building in Sofia, Bulgaria, the Sky Fort. Yes, it's called the Sky Fort, which is kind of silly, but look, you can just call it the Citadel, because that's why we're here. You will conclude your vacation on the top floor, looking out at the beautiful skyline of Sofia. Well, that was quite a journey. If anyone books and completes this vacation, let me know how it was in the comments.